Hello and welcome to Overtime Hockey Talk. My name is Mark Paul. Justin Baker joining me as we dive right in to a playoff preview of some series here. We have 4 series that we know are happening for sure. A couple, I think one of them it's not totally set on who's the home team and who's the away. That would be the Edmonton Oilers and the Los Angeles Kings. They are still only separated by 2 points, with 2 and 3 games left to go. So that one could change as far as who gets home ice, but I think it's safe to say they're playing each other because they are. They will play each other. So we'll be breaking down that series as well. The Dallas Stars will be home to the Colorado Avalanche in round 1. That is just almost a travesty that those two teams have to play each other in round 1. And then we have the Carolina Hurricanes and the New Jersey Devils. That is a lock. I guess the other one, the fourth one, isn't technically a lock yet. Are we willing to go out on a limb here and say, now, by the time you are watching this, to our listeners, right now it's Monday, 5:15. So we've yet to some money on it.
I would put money on it. That's what I'm getting at right here.
Yes, that Montreal needs 1 point in their next 2 games, and they play the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, you're watching this right now. You could just go, Montreal made the playoffs. I think they're going to do something tonight. They're going to clinch it. This is the game to do it. You don't want to wait until the last game of the season. I think they clinch it tonight in Ivan Demidov's debut, which is going to be something to behold. I think he's probably the best player playing outside of the NHL before this point, and he's about to make his debut. He broke all of Kaprizov's records. This could be wild. No pun intended.
The rich get richer, right?
Sure. Yeah. Montreal just seems to have a gluttony of young talent just dumped into their lap. If they find a way to pull off 1 point in the next 2 games, they will be the youngest team to ever make the playoffs.
Oh, that's a good stat right there.
That's wild. Yeah. That's the youngest team to ever make the playoffs. So that's a feat. And I think a lot of that credit goes to Martin St. Louis, who clearly, whatever he does, just turns into very small pieces of gold, but gold nonetheless.
Listen,
so I think, go ahead.
I was going to say, I want to just give it up to management there, because not just Martin St. Louis, GM, the president, all that management, they went out and made some moves that I really like this year.
Yep.
Again, we'll talk about that as we get there. But again, they've made some moves that I think have just been fantastic.
So I think we'll go on a limb. We're going to do a preview of Washington and Montreal as the first round matchup. We know that Washington is playing the second wildcard team now at this point. We know that's happening. Okay, let's start with, we'll make that our last series. That way, if we really screw up, we can go back and delete this part. So I say we'll start in the Western Conference, and let's start with some very familiar territory, and that's the Los Angeles Kings and the Edmonton Oilers. I want to get your first, how do you feel about this series?
Well, I feel like I'm watching a rerun here, because this is the 4th time in a row now we get this matchup for the first round, and we know Edmonton 3-0 the last 3 matchups, they've won them all. And is that going to be the repeat? But going into this matchup, it feels different, right? And I don't know if that's maybe because the way a guy like Quentin Byfield's been playing, or Connor McDavid being hurt, but it just feels like it's going to be a different series this time around. Now, whether or not, again, you and I can give our predictions at the end, but whether or not it's actually the outcome is going to be different this time around, who knows? But for me, again, it's like watching another episode of, I don't know, that 70s show. And again, the same characters always showing up, but it's just going to happen again.
Now, here, I will say, I know right now home ice has not been decided. The Oilers have 2 games left, Kings have 3 games left, and the Kings are 2 points up, and also have all the tiebreakers. Like, the Kings have won 41 regulation games, and the Oilers only 35. So the Kings are going to own that tiebreaker no matter what Edmonton does in the last 2 games. So the Oilers need at least 3 of 4 points, and the Kings would have to get skunked the rest of their 3 games, which I don't think is going to happen. I think it's pretty fair to say the Kings are going to have home ice for this series. Like, it's looking pretty darn good for that to happen.
Yeah, I think that's more than a likely outcome. And I think maybe that, again, I don't even think LA really cares. If you really look at they're
31-5-4 at home. are unbelievable at home. They are the
I know. I'm
only
just
team in the Western Conference that is actually, I think they might be the only playoff team. There's one other one. No, there's two. In the East, there's a couple losers away from home. The Canadiens and the Hurricanes both have losing records away from home. But
so do the Sens.
yes, Sens do as well. But in the Western Conference, they are the only team with a losing record away from home. And that, here's what's crazy. The next worst team to have a losing record away from home are the Anaheim Ducks. Like even Utah, Vancouver, Calgary, they all have winning records away from home. So the Kings being home, it clearly they're more comfortable playing there than anywhere else.
Right.
So at the most home wins in the league, tied with the Hurricanes. I got to think that home ice is crucial. If you're coaching the Kings, you go, we have to go out. We have to win one of these games. We need home ice. I think it might be one of the linchpins in this series, and it's that they control their destiny to grab that. The other side of it is just injuries. Like the Oilers have been destroyed with injuries here down the stretch, and that includes injuries to Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Evander Kane's been out for a long time. And we know now that Ekholm will miss the entire first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, big loss.
Huge loss. So I'm looking at that, and I'm wondering if this is just a series of attrition. Like the Oilers are already bruised up. I know that like McDavid will be back. Draisaitl will play. Are they 100%? They're going to be as close to it as they can be, but I got to think the Kings are chomping at the bit here to probably throw their weight around and take advantage of the injuries that they have, especially on defense. How important has Ekholm been on the Oilers' last two runs, especially last year to the finals?
Yeah, key.
So
yeah, I will say though they do have Jake Wallman, but he's no Ekholm.
Jake Wallman was a great addition, and when you had him alongside with Ekholm, it was a great trade. At this point, now he's just going to play up in the lineup. But when I consider, you look and you go, it's Nurse and Bouchard, and then Wallman, and you've got like Brett Kulak, Troy Stetcher. I think Stetcher's playing with Wallman, and then Kulak's playing with Emberson. There's not a lot to love there. As you get deeper into that lineup without Matthias Ekholm. So that's going to be probably the toughest and the side that leans heaviest towards the Kings is that the Oilers just might not have the defense to be able to stop them.
Yeah, and let's not forget too, right? We know last year's playoff outcome, and maybe there's some fatigue from that, and coupled with those injuries. And then you talk about the defense, and I look at Darnell Nurse, just what a terrible, in my opinion, run he had last year or at least the last couple of years in the playoffs, and now he's going to be counted on more this playoff series, especially with
that's terrify Edmonton Oilers fans. You're an Edmonton Oilers fan out there, and you love Darnell Nurse. Please shoot us a message on X.
That's 3 people
at OT Hockey Talk. If there's anyone out there, do you see something we don't see? Yeah, it's going to be the toughest of these 4 times that these two teams have played. Not only are the Oilers beaten up, but the Kings are. It's not even fair to look 4 years ago to when these two teams first played each other. That year, the Kings, it was like, wow, the Kings rebuild is over and they're in the playoffs. This is a little ahead of schedule, but good for them. And I think, did they push them to 7 games? That first series? I forget.
I don't know.
I feel like I think they did, but I feel like at least one of those first couple ones went to 7 games.
Let me take a look here.
Yeah, take a look. But I think that this one will be the hardest for them to win because LA is a really good team. I think the last 3 years it was, hey, they're done rebuilding, but they weren't going on any big runs. Even if they had gotten past the Oilers, like they weren't going to beat the Vegas Golden Knights. It just wasn't that team. But I think legitimately this year, the Kings have changed the way that I see them. They're getting good goaltending. Their defense has been really good. And their forwards, their younger guys, are all stepping it up. And not to mention, they still have 2 of the best defensive centers in the game in Deneau. So it's just, And Kopitar is just a gluttony of riches on that defensive forward side of the game. And I think the Kings legitimately could go on a run. They could beat the Edmonton Oilers, and they could go into the second round and beat the Vegas Golden Knights. So this is just a different Kings team. It's not fair to compare the last 3 years.
Well, they did take them 7 games, by the way, just to answer your question.
My memory, it still works. I'm 39 now. I joined the club.
Happy belated birthday for those who didn't tweet you.
Yeah, nobody did.
But that's a tragedy.
I guess people did on Facebook. That's we don't really have our birthday on our Overtime Hockey Talk Twitter. But I guess what is our birthday on there? I think is like August 2017.
Is it really?
That's when the account I think was started somewhere in there.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Yeah, but back to LA, I'll just say this. Again, we've seen 3 straight years of playoff matchups, but for me, this team, even though offensively speaking, maybe they're just not as – they don't have that high-end talent that maybe we've seen these last few years where guys are putting up 80, 90 points. But for me, this team just looks so balanced, right? You talked about down the middle with Deneau, and you've got Quentin Byfield, I think, this year finally coming into form at that center position, and he's filling in at that number 2.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's playing responsible hockey too. He's not a liability, right? Obviously a plus 17 already. And a majority of his, he's only got 6 power play points out of those 52, 46 right now, 46 out of the 53 points have been an even strength. So we know he plays good 5-on-5 hockey, and that's what the bread and butter of this team is. They're a 5-on-5 team. And listen, they're second best in the league at goals against per game. And look, Darcy Kuemper looks like a Vezina finalist right now. We know Connor Hollebach's locked up this trophy, but Kuemper looks phenomenal right now.
Yep.
So that, again, when you try to match up teams, I always go straight to goaltending, and that's the first thing that's going to scare me if I'm Edmonton Oilers fans. They've got a goaltender on the other side that looks phenomenal. And on Edmonton's side, I don't know who's starting in net for this team. I'm sure it's going to be Stuart Skinner, right? That's the obvious pick, but Calvin Pickard has outplayed him, in my opinion, this season. So
yeah, let's not pretend that Stuart Skinner is like that much better than the next guy. And that may be the most terrifying part about Edmonton's defense is severely lacking without Ekholm, on top of the fact that there's really no one that you can deeply trust in goal. So now, and you look across the team you're going to play, Kuemper has just been absolute lights out. He's been phenomenal. Like that team, they know that they can rely on him to make a save, and he has that team in front of him that is so good at protecting the net. They do everything that he needs. And really, Kuemper is just I don't think that Kuemper is necessarily playing so much better than he has in the past. I think that he's just in that situation. Some goalies fit better with different systems. And he's that guy who he plays well when he's got players who can clear the front of the net. And it's just working out for him. So I think Darcy Kuemper is probably the wild card in this whole series, because he could steal the series to the point where Edmonton wins a game. And what we've seen in the past, Edmonton's racked up a couple games on the Kings where they just score 8 goals, and Leon Draisaitl and McDavid are leaving the first round with 28 points. Like, in just this ridiculous fashion, the way that they've been beating the Kings, it was basically like the first line just pours it on, and that's all they needed. And I don't think that's going to be the case this year because of Darcy Kuemper, who, let's not forget, has won a Stanley Cup.
Exactly. He's got the cup. He knows what it takes to win.
And he played really well when they won.
Right. He did.
I don't think he had but maybe one or two bad games that playoff year in 2022 when the Avs won the cup.
And Stuart Skinner last year was just okay. He didn't steal anything. Remember? Oh, yeah. He got pulled a lot. Yeah.
Calvin Pickard came in for a couple games.
Right. Yeah. So he was just average. Right. But to me, I think, again, even though they've gone 4 years in a row, and maybe Kings fans, right, maybe they internally are feeling a little bit more pressure to win, but I don't think the players feel that, because on the flip side, when you talk about Darcy Kuemper in goal and the experience and the ability to win and steal a game or two, Stuart Skinner, to me, even though he's got 1 year left on his deal, I think this is a make it or break it playoff run for him, because if he comes out and lays out a couple stinkers, right, they're going to go quickly to Calvin Pickard. And you talk about a guy at $2.6 million can easily be, I don't want to say replaced, but they could easily find room in the cap to go out and sign a guy like, I don't know, Alex Lyon, right? And bring him in and be like, we got a guy who's gonna be the starter next year, right? Or is gonna push you, right? You're not guaranteed a spot at $2.6 million. There's going to be a lot of pressure on him to perform, or else they're going to start looking elsewhere, I think, for someone else in that.
Yep. I'm wondering, has there ever been a time when a team has played the same team 4 years in a row in the playoffs, and that the same team has won every time?
Maybe you could go back to the New York Islanders in the 80s, but
yeah, but did the Islanders play the same team every year in a row?
I don't know. I'm going to look that up really quick.
I know they played the Oilers a couple times. Like, I think they played them in their last win, and then they lost to them when they were going for their final win, their fifth 5-peat. I'm sure that back in the original 6 days, there were teams that had the opportunity to do that. You played the same team 4 years in a row. But in this, maybe since there was at least 12 teams, I'm wondering if it's ever happened. I couldn't find it. AI did me no favors. Did you find one?
So definitely not the Islanders. I'm just taking a peek and going back through this.
Yeah, see if you can find anything. I mean, the closest thing I can think of is like the NFL, when the Buffalo Bills went to the Super Bowl 3 years in a row and lost all 3 times, but I think that was to different teams. Yeah, it would be a pretty wild thing to go and lose 4 years in a row to the same team. That'll hurt. And yeah, I think the Kings I like the Oilers. I think that everybody loves to see Connor McDavid do really well, just because he's a fierce competitor. He's the best player in the game, and Draisaitl is right there with him. So they're always fun to watch. Part of me just want to see a different team sneak in there, like the Kings go and like at least make this a great series. Get us to 7 games and let's see what happens. But honestly, I think that the Kings are going to take this one. That's where I'm leaning right now. I think the Oilers' injuries, their defense, their goaltending, they just aren't the team that they were last year. And with the Ekholm injury, that knocks it over the edge for me. And I think the Oilers they'll be good again next year, but I think they have some holes to fill to make it out of this first round. I think the Kings are just due. They're due. They've been building for this point. Like, you have to think they've been building their team to beat the Oilers. How could you not at this point? You know you're going to play them.
You just got to listen. If you're a Kings fan, right, you just want to get out of that first round. So if management can pull that off, you're happy. And I think at some point you're going to have to start saying, let's go out and win one for Kopitar and get him out of this first round hole, right? So
I'm going Kings in 7, and they have home ice, and it's going to do them a big favor in Game 7.
Okay, Kings in 7. Yeah, I'm also going to go Kings. Actually, I'm going to get something out and write this down because I want to revisit this like I always do. But yeah, for me, I'm going Kings as well. I'm not going to say 7. I'm going to say 6. I look at this forward depth for the LA Kings, and I'm not impressed with Edmonton's forward depth. Adam Henrique has been fine. Corey Perry chips in every once in a while, but obviously we've talked about it. Also,
Perry has 18 goals. What?
Yeah, it's impressive, man.
He's having a good little season.
Right. It is, yeah. He scored another one last night.
I mean, he's due to piss people off. Well, that's going to happen.
Right. But guys like Jeff Skinner, Victor Arvidsson, even Zach Hyman really hasn't showed up this year like he has in seasons past. And I'm with you on the injury bug there, too. What are we really going to get out of Connor McDavid? I think Leon Draisaitl is going to show up, but McDavid, actually, fun little tidbit. If he scores one more point before the end of the season, I think it's either the 4th or 5th season in a row, he'll have 100 points in a row, and he'll be the first player to do that since Steve Yzerman did back in '92.
Wow. Stevie Y. Nice.
Yeah, should be fun. But again, I think, to me, the forward depth and the goaltending is going to be the difference here.
Okay. Yep. All right, so we both have the Kings. You have them in 6. I have them in 7.
The NBA 82-game grind is done, and now the real fun begins. The NBA playoffs are here, and it's time for all the high-stakes drama, clutch moments, and jaw-dropping plays. I can't wait. If you're looking to make the playoffs even more exciting, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered as an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Try placing a bet on your favorite player's performance. Will they drop 30 points, 40 points, or more? It's your call. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Make it a playoff run to remember with DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after insurance. For additional terms and responsible gambling resources, see dkng.co/audio.
Let's go over to the Central Division where the Dallas Stars are playing the Colorado Avalanche. And we do know that the Dallas Stars have home ice advantage in the first round. Colorado is actually the only team done playing. Their last game was Saturday.
Weird.
they get a whole week off before the playoffs. And I am going to say that is advantage Colorado. I think that's going to be big for game one. They know who they're playing. They don't have to work. They're just going to be practicing and thinking about the Dallas Stars. Meanwhile, the Dallas Stars have to go play a couple more games. I know they'll rest a few guys, but you still got a nicer roster. You still got to go out there. You got to play those games. And I think that's advantage Colorado going into the first round. So I do think that game one is going to be tilted towards Colorado in Colorado's favor. And from there, though, my first question is Miro Heiskanen. Is there a more important player in that series for the Dallas Stars than Miro Heiskanen? They're saying he's going to go. They're saying that he should be good to go for game one, but how many teams say, oh, they should be good to go? And you don't want to tell the other team they're not good to go for game one if there's maybe a little chance. So I am concerned there. That's probably my biggest Dallas Stars concern.
Okay. When you say good to go, whether or not he actually does go, and let's just assume he goes, he's not 100%. I mean, there's just no way.
Exactly.
What kind of Miro Heiskanen are you going to get? I will say, luckily for Dallas this time around, Thomas Harley, to me, is the guy to watch. He could easily just cement himself as a legit number one defenseman following the series. We know with what he did in the Four Nations, he looked pretty good. So I'm excited to see what Thomas Harley can do with a little bit of pressure, a few more minutes each night, especially, again, depending on what kind of Miro Heiskanen you get. But I will say that's a good problem to have, especially if Heiskanen comes back and he's even 85% of his usual self. You're going to have two stud defensemen back there for you.
Yep, it's true. And Dallas has done a nice job at their defensive depth is strong. You've got Cody Ceci, who was in the Stanley Cup Finals last year for Edmonton, Ilya Lyubushkin, who you're going to get a couple big hits out of him in a series where physicality is going to be important. It may be one of the areas where Dallas has the advantage over the Colorado Avalanche is just being able to throw their weight around a little bit. And that will definitely need to happen. Matt Dumba will be out there trying to do that as well. So I think that defensive side of the game, when it comes to just who can stop the other team, right? Like we know Mikhail Makar is the best player in this series, probably the most important player in this series because of what he can do, and followed closely second by Nathan MacKinnon. So Colorado has that high end advantage where there are no better two players who could just take over a game, have 4 points, and you don't even know what happened. So that's advantage Colorado, but Dallas just has phenomenal depth throughout their lineup, and they've got some guys who know how to win. Jamie Benn has been to a final. Tyler Seguin's coming back, and he hasn't been playing in a minute. So there's a lot for Dallas's forward group. It's just going to be, can they stop MacKinnon and Makar? That
is the question, right?
That's the question. Yep. Number one question.
Absolutely is. And unfortunately for Dallas, the one thing I've just noticed, I haven't noticed, let's just put it that way, is Jason Robertson, right? He's been a little up and down this year. He'll get on fire for a while and then he cools off. When, I hate to say it, but when you're trying to go score for score with a team like Colorado that can easily put up a 5 spot every single night on you, especially with that forward depth, assuming they get Landeskog back, who scored a goal now in his Colorado Eagles.
Yep.
So he looks not.
I want that jersey though.
Oh, yeah.
That Colorado Eagles Landeskog on the back. I heard it was.
That would
selling.
Be a nice one.
I heard it was selling.
Yeah, but for Dallas, your leading scorer is Matt Duchene, And again, if you got to go put up 4 or 5 goals, Dallas, obviously, they're sitting in the top 5 as far as goals scored with the Avalanche. But
yeah, they don't lack the ability to score.
yeah, but if you have to rely on those star players, when things get a little bit tighter and you need one guy to elevate his game and push through, right? 2-3 years ago, I would have said Jason Robertson, but this year I'm coming in, I'm like, I don't really know. We could talk about Wyatt Johnson maybe, but
Can I tell you why this is the best series?
Please.
In the first round? When the Colorado Avalanche traded Mikko Rantanen to the Carolina Hurricanes, I'm sure that they never thought that they'd see him again. And now they are going to see him at least 4 times in the playoffs, if not more. I think more like 6 or 7. And is there anybody more pissed off and ready to destroy than Mikko Rantanen? I don't think that there's anyone in the playoffs, first round. Like, if I'm drafting a fantasy team, he's my number 1 pick. Number 1, hands down. I'm picking him because I think he is going to go ham. Not obviously not physically, like he's not someone who's going to go and blow guys up. I think he's going to put up big points. I think that he is more than prepared. And like, how many of those Dallas guys are like, dude, that team traded you, man. Now they're going to face your wrath. I just think it's going to be so much fun to watch.
I hope you're right, man. I really do. Or is it going to be a Colorado team that says, hey, we know how this guy likes to play. We know his idiosyncrasies.
No, I think he's gonna do some things. I think he's gonna be phenomenal. Now, I will say, obviously, Dallas and Colorado played each other last year in the second round. Dallas won in 6 games. I think they won game 6 in OT, double OT, actually. You look at the team last year, Dallas is pretty much the same team outside of Rantanen. All right, like a very similar. An addition of Rantanen is a phenomenal addition. And obviously Thomas Harley is a year better and all that. But Colorado is a much different team than they were coming into that second round last year. We know Colorado went in and they beat up the Winnipeg Jets. I think they beat them in 5 games. They had a couple games where I think they scored. Yeah, they scored at least 5 goals in every single game. And in that 5-game series, they scored 29 goals.
Jeez.
They destroyed the Jets, and then they got to the second round, and they really struggled to score against the Stars. 3 of those losses, only 1 goal for the Avs. I think that's going to be different this year. Whether or not Landeskog comes back, you've got Nichus instead of Rantanen, obviously, and then you are getting Nichushkin, who's going to be playing, who wasn't there last year. If you remember, it was like on the precipice of the playoffs that he vanished, right? Like he went into the player assisted program and he was no longer on the team. And that actually was a big shot in the arm for that team, as like a lot of guys were mad at him, right? Say what you want about it, but I think there was a lot of emotion behind it. And that definitely hurt them. Charlie Coyle wasn't there. So I think you've got quite a different team up front for the Avalanche, which is going to be a tougher out for the Stars because of that depth that they now have.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people worry about that last year and even the beginning of this year, right? They had Rantanen and McKinnon. They play so well together. But honestly, Nichushkin seems to fit in just like a glove with Nate every single time they're on the ice. They always seem to create some magic. So I don't think there's going to be any loss as far as the ability to score when it comes to Colorado's top line, right? If they got to go top guys for top guys.
And I forgot to mention Mackenzie Blackwood.
Yeah,
very different than Georgiev, who crumbled.
Who is literally the worst goaltender in the NHL this year.
He's not even in the NHL anymore. It's wild.
Yeah, but I think if Dallas has any hope, again, Jake Ottinger is going to be great. I think he'll hold his own, right? If you want to go goaltender for goaltender, you can basically just cross both those guys off as one guy versus the other. But it's got to be Rantanen, right? He's got to be the difference maker, the guy that I think is going to push Dallas. If they have any shot, he's going to be the guy that's going to have to push them over the top, I think.
Yep. And I do like that Scott Wedgwood and Mackenzie Blackwood played together in New Jersey. And Wedgwood also played on Dallas there for 1 year. So there's a lot of connections to this series. But who are you leaning towards? I want to get your prediction first in this series.
Yeah, I like both teams' forward depth. They've got a lot of guys, that they got basically 3 lines, I think, both teams that they can roll out at any time and can do some damage to you, right? Because we don't know with Drouin and Landeskog, if he comes back, he'll probably slot in on that third line. So again, there's going to be 3 good lines, I think, on both forward groups. I think for me, the difference is you really have the more exciting defensive, the back end, right? And for Colorado, that's where I kind of lean, because Thomas Harley, Heiskanen, right? Those guys are fine, but they're no Cale Makar. And obviously Colorado's got some other pieces on the blue line, right? We can talk about Gerard and Eric Johnson coming back, whatever that may mean for this team. But at the end of the day, I mean, you've got Cale Makar, one of the best players in the world, and he's going to be the difference, I think, in the series for this team.
Okay. Yeah. And that addition to the forward depth. And if Landeskog plays, which it sure looks like he's going to play, like he played just fine in the AHL. I can't imagine that they won't at least say, sure, let's bring you up. Let's put you on the third line and we'll give you 10 minutes and then bump it up to 12. There's going to be a little bit of a working in process, but what a boost for that team. Like literally the opposite of last year, where at playoff time they went, hey, sorry, you're probably your best pure goal scorer outside of McKinnon is just gone. And like just the emotion that was behind that. And then you go this next year, you get Landeskog back. Like he's going to be
like Stamkos in Tampa when he came back for the finals, right?
And I got to think that's the boost that is needed to get them over the hump. But I am very excited to watch Rantanen play against the Avalanche.
I think you talked me into it. I was looking forward to it, but now I'm pumped now for it.
It's going to be awesome. I mean, just think about how mad he was when they traded him. You can always read between the lines. Obviously, these guys are somewhat trained to be like, everything is fine. It's all good. But he was so mad. Because I didn't even know. I thought we were working on a contract. Oh, it's wonderful. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So much talent in this series up front and on the back end. It's going to be phenomenal. I think if Dallas wins, then they're going to need to get some next level goaltending out of Jake Ottinger. Ottinger has been very hot or cold in the playoffs.
Yes.
So if he can play like he did last year against the Avs, then I would say the Avs they're not going to stand a chance if he's on top of his game. If he's on top of his game, he's a top 5 goaltender in the league. But when he's not, he's very average. And I think Colorado could take advantage of it. So this might be the hardest series to call in the whole league. I got any of the possibilities. This one to me is like game 7 OT.
Yeah.
Very difficult to call, but I really like the changes that the Avs made. I think that they've looked the best since the trade deadline. We didn't even bring up Brock Nelson.
Or Charlie Coyle.
Is there a hungrier guy, like just desperate to get back into the playoffs after missing the last few years? And not to mention, he's been to a couple conference finals. It's not like he's a playoff slouch either. It's not like he's been a guy who's never made the playoffs. He's got some pedigree in winning series. He knows how to do it. So I think that coupled with the Heiskanen unsuredness and Tyler Seguin still not probably 100% trying to come back. I think I'm leaning Avalanche here. Avalanche in 7.
Okay. Yeah, and let's think about that too, right? Brock Nelson. I don't think Colorado has had a legit number 2 center since Kadri left, and now they've got a guy in there.
Yep. 2022. They're like, how do we get this team back to how we had it in 2022? A good goalie. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm with you. I'm going Colorado in 7 too.
All right. Beautiful. One of these days we'll have to disagree about who's going to win a series, but not today. I will say this. If Dallas wins, like both these teams could win the cup. That's what I love and hate about this first round series. Like it's silly. Both these teams legitimately, not just, if everything goes well. No, both these teams are legitimate Stanley Cup contenders. So it'll be a dogfight. All right, let's go over to the Eastern Conference. We talk about the series I'm most excited for, probably that Dallas-Colorado series. Let's go to the series that I need a little bit of help to get excited for. That's Carolina at home to New Jersey. Tell me how you feel about this series.
To be quite honest, I think that I've cooled on New Jersey since the beginning of the year.
They have no Jack Hughes. That really, that hurts a lot.
It does. Yeah, absolutely. And Jacob Markstrom has not been what I thought he was going to be in New Jersey, and somehow I will tip my cap to them. They somehow managed to stay in the playoff picture despite the mediocrity, I think, from a lot of guys this season.
They stayed in the picture because the rest of the league has been their division's been terrible.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. Jesper Bratt's been great. Oddly enough, it's funny, Jack Hughes, we talk about him not being there, but he still is second in points on this team. And maybe one of these days, Timo Meier will actually show up. I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
The Sharks knew when to deal him. I'll tell you what, they got a lot for him too. So that's one of the better moves of, oh, everybody really wants this guy. Go ahead. Yeah. We see the writing on the wall.
Yeah. And to be quite honest too, when you look at the flip side, Carolina, they don't really have any, outside of maybe Sebastian Aho, there's no big superstars on this team, right? They lost their superstar in Mikko Rantanen, goaltending. Right. Svechnikov, okay, he's not a superstar, but he's a star player when he's healthy anyways, right? And I don't know. I think we're going to have just a very low-scoring kind of series. It's not going to be too fun to watch. You're not going to have a lot of firepower on each end if you get into those kind of 5-4, 6-5 kind of dog matches. I don't think you're going to have that kind of quality scoring unless you just have terrible defensive play and terrible goaltending.
Yeah, I'm thinking I went to about a month ago, Carolina playing Detroit. I went to that game, and Carolina they're so boring. They just do, and they make you look terrible. They made the Red Wings look like they didn't care, and you can always that's not the case. Like a team fighting for their playoff lives, you knew they care, and they just make you look bad. And it's one of the. It's boring, but it's impressive what they can do to teams. Like they can just shut you down and make you look like you don't care because you don't have the puck very often, and they're happy to keep it. And I just nothing really excites me very much about this series. I guess there's a little bit of that. Can Sheldon Keefe get out of the first round? There's that storyline. I think it will be underlying this whole thing. I think both these teams are going to have problems if they don't get out of the first round. Now, the Devils have maybe a built-in excuse without Hughes, but I think there is, like last year was a huge disappointment that they missed the playoffs. They won in the first round against the Rangers the year before in 23. You're kind of looking at this year like, all right, we want to take a next step. Like Hughes or no Hughes, we have a better team this year than we did last year. So like we need to try and take a step here. For Carolina, a first round loss might mean the end of Rod Brind'Amour.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but
like how many opportunities are you going to give Rod Brind'Amour to get his team to get over the hump? Now, I know he's won in the first round before, but then he's losing in the second round. And it's always been the same old, they can't score. Are they going to go score bunches of goals against the Devils? Probably not. I think that a first round loss is definitely going to put some pressure on that team to make some big changes. So I think all the pressure's on Carolina, but they're the better team. I don't think there's any question that they're the better team, but maybe that pressure or lack thereof for New Jersey is just what they need. Like they're underdogs.
They've got a new GM in this year. And I think this is a good opportunity. Let's say they lose this first round series. This is an opportunity to reevaluate really your coaching style, right? And I don't know necessarily that means firing Rod Brind'Amour, but maybe it's him having to make some tweaks to what he does, maybe some new assistants. I don't know. But also too, I think it has a little bit to do with the culture there too, because you have guys like Gensel and Rantanen who clearly didn't want to be there. Right. Either they weren't paid enough, they just didn't like being there to begin with. And I think it has a lot to do with the way they play hockey there. And a lot to do with the fact that management might come in and say, okay, cool. We know we can beat teams 2-1. We don't have to buy the super expensive talent. So we can get along with guys that are just second line players anywhere else, maybe outside of Aho and Svechnikov, but we can get by with these other 50, 60 point players and still manage to be there at the top because we know we can win the way we,
or maybe everyone wants to make the Stanley Cup. Everybody wants to win the cup, but yet they're very much trying to be the like money ball. How can we get to the finals without actually spending any money? Yeah. And I have to imagine now all we see is the cap, right? Yeah, they spend pretty close to the cap anyways, but we see the cap. We don't necessarily see all the extras that a team can spend as much money as they want on, right? Like all the staff, your facilities, and I'm not saying that their facilities are crap, but I have to imagine that if you're penny pinching on trying to keep some of your star players and you're not willing to pay them, are you going out and making your extra facilities as nice as possible? I would just have to guess that the answer is no. Like, you're pinching pennies everywhere. You're looking to cut corners, maybe not cut corners, but you're probably not going out and getting the new shiny toys all the time. So I would think that players see that and they go, I could go somewhere where they do. They're
And as
not
a
as
player, you're not excited to go play for Rod Brennemer because you know you're not going to put up 100 points, 110 points.
That's true.
So you're
Yeah.
like, oh, cool. I've got to just worry about playing defense, and I don't get to really go dangle and have fun, because that's what the NHL wants now. Is they want those guys that can go out and put up 100 points, right? Like the Connor Bedards, hopefully, anyways, in the future. But yeah, so that kind of, I don't know, it just puts a damper on this team and their ability to reel in that talent. So is it enough to get over the hump this year without that kind of talent?
Yeah, first round, I'm going Carolina. I'd say five or six games. I guess I would say 6. I do think like Keefe's a good enough coach, I think, to coach through a little bit and find some wins, but especially away from home. Carolina's been quite bad away from home. They're 16-19-4. So that's a big knock against them. So away from home, New Jersey's got to capitalize on that if they're going to have any hope at winning this series. They're probably not going to win 2 games in Carolina, so they're going to have to win as much as they can in New Jersey. But I don't see Carolina losing this first round, simply because I think that they can lock the Devils up, and there's just not enough depth there up front for the Devils.
Okay. So I guess the question is, for me, whether or not I think Peter Kochetkov is ready, right, to take that next step in his game. He's looked okay this season, not great, but now that you don't have that firepower, right? They've had Gensel in the past. They've had guys that they brought in at the deadline to help score. But now that Freddie Anderson clearly is not going to be the guy, I think, in that net, what are you getting out of Kochetkov come playoff time? So if he can step up his game, I know Markstrom has that ability, and I believe maybe we'll see a little bit of that this series. But I think, again, without Hughes, Timo Meier playing, I don't know if they have enough forward depth scoring to overcome what I think Carolina is going to do to them in that neutral zone game that they like to shut down.
Yep. Yeah. And the other side of it is, yes, Carolina has those 2 guys, but New Jersey, maybe Markstrom is the one wild card. Is there a scenario where Markstrom finds his rest a little bit and he gets a reset and has a good playoff? I think there's a scenario where that could happen, where he's better in the playoffs than he was in the regular season. So that would definitely that could throw a wrench into Carolina's plans for sure. I just don't think that New Jersey is going to be able to muster much offense, and that would be my concern here.
Yeah, that's going to be the concern, right? Timo
So
Meier,
how many games? How many games?
Ooh, I'm going to say 5. I think
5.
This is going to go Carolina in 5, honestly.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And I'm going Carolina in 6. Hey guys, listen up. You ever feel like your off-ice training is just stuck in neutral while your game deserves overdrive? I mean, what if I told you there's an app that's like having a world-class strength coach in your pocket without the $500 a month price tag? Let's talk Alpha Progression. Look, we're about no BS hustle here. I mean, that's why Alpha Progression is the ultimate wingman for packing on muscle. I know y'all want to do that, whether you're still playing hockey or not, or the last time you played was when you were 18 in high school. This app is built by competitive bodybuilders and backed by science. It cuts through the fluff, delivers laser-focused programs to make you stronger, faster, and harder to knock off the puck. Don't just take my word for it. Alpha Progression's crushed it as Apple's 2-time app of the day. It dominates as Germany's top fitness app, and now they're coming to you. Look, you can tell Alpha Progression all the equipment that you have. You can tell it what you're working with, what your goals are, and you don't have to guess. It's going to tell you what weights to move up to. I mean, the app studies you like game tape. It tells you exactly how many reps, what load to do. You keep gaining all season long. I've been using it for almost a month now, and I love it. I mean, I don't have to think when I go into the gym. I can just work. I can enjoy myself, get a good workout in, and not have to think about what's next. And you know what? It gets me through. Like when you know you have a plan, you got to get to the end of that plan. I've really enjoyed using it. The interface is smoother than a fresh sheet of ice. You can track every set, adjust on the fly, and stay focused, even if you're just a rookie. Now, our listeners are getting 20% off their first payment. You can go to alphaprogression.com/overtime to unlock a 2 free week trial. So it's $12.99 a month or $79.99 a year. Costs less than a post-game beer. God knows those beers are expensive. So get ready to outwork everyone in the locker room. Click the link in the show notes and let's turn your gym into a weapon. So once again, we agree. And I feel like we're going to agree on this last series. We're going to do the Washington Capitals and the Montreal Canadiens, which is not a lock yet, but it's almost, the odds are very small that this
might as well be.
Yeah. Now, obviously, Washington's season has been highlighted by Ovechkin chasing Gretzky's record for goals. He got another one to put him at 896 the other night. That has defined this season. And all the while, they just keep winning. And they've been such a different team than what we've seen the last few years from the Washington Capitals. And it's no longer just about Ovechkin from an offensive standpoint. There's plenty of nights where they score 6 goals and Ovechkin's not even on the tally, even when he was healthy. So they are getting offense from a lot of different guys. And that to me is just, Montreal's a great story. Demidov coming in, that's going to be really fun to see. How much can he change? That's a pretty darn quick turnaround. Like, I don't remember a time where a player went from not playing with the team, play the last couple games, go into the playoffs, and then dominates. Like Ken Dryden did it in goal for the Montreal Canadiens back in 74 or 75, something like that. But to do it from a forward position, he's not going to play in the first line. I don't think he's going to get PP one time. He'll be a nice addition. But Montreal's a young team. I don't see a scenario where Washington is not prepared for this Montreal team.
I will say, if you have to say, when you talk about being prepared, right, that comes back down to coaching. And I think right now we're already penciling Carberry's name in for that Jack Adams award. I don't see anybody else that could take that from him. And I think at the end of the day, right, when you have to talk about who can make those adjustments come playoff time, I honestly, last year was a throwaway year, I think, for Washington in the playoffs. They got in. That was great for them. Good. But
they got in because everyone else lost.
Exactly.
No one could win.
Yeah, so I think this year is going to be a good test for both St. Louis and Carberry. Both these guys have never seen NHL playoff action, minus last year for Washington. If I had to take my money on one, I think I might take St. Louis, just because I think he's had that success as a player. And so I think he's seen those changes and he's seen what it takes to really adjust in today's game for that. But sometimes that doesn't always translate into being a good NHL coach, right? You know, for me, you might as well.
He's a fantastic coach.
He's a fantastic coach. There's no doubt about that. I'm not saying that at all, but you might as well just flip a coin right now. But I would lean a little bit more towards St. Louis if I had to pick one guy.
Like, as far as who's the better coach?
Yeah, who I think could make the adjustments on the fly. Right now, again, you still have to have the personnel to go out and actually play those adjustments, and to do that on the ice. Maybe I think Washington is better prepared for that kind of thing. Just having those guys that have the experience, like Alexander Ovechkin, and they've got obviously a much better, in my opinion, back end with guys like Chikrin and Carlson. So that could be the difference maker, I think, if anything, for this series, because I think both groups of forwards are going to be phenomenal to watch and exciting to watch. If you have to go Nuke Suzuki versus Alexander Ovechkin, it's going to make for a fun matchup, right?
Yeah. There's a lot to like about Montreal. I think that they're still young, and a guy like Lane Hudson, we know there's no reason to be like, yeah, he's 5'7", 162 pounds. Like, he's tiny. That hasn't stopped him. And I don't think that it's necessarily that's not going to be what stops him in the playoffs, but he is going to get hit. Like, the playoffs change. In the regular season, you might still be going up against a good team, but it's the second game of a back-to-back. And guys are hurt. Like, everyone is prepped for this series. And that's what makes these so hard for a young team to come in to these games, because, yeah, your young team has played against all these teams in the regular season. Great. Playoffs, it's a different animal. And everyone's prepared and everyone's at their best. No one is giving 50%. 70%. Everyone is giving 100% of what they have in the playoffs. And the Washington Capitals are just, they're loaded from a forward perspective everywhere on that team. Like, their depth is fantastic. They have spread out so much talent throughout their lineup. Andrew Mangiapane on the third line. It's not too far removed from him having a 35 goal season. There's a lot of firepower back there. He's having, and I would say he's got 14 goals this year, but playing on the third line, he can score a goal. Like, he's somebody who can score from a lot of places too. You just have these players who can do damage, especially Ovechkin, from literally anywhere. I don't see how Montreal is going to push the needle enough to overcome what Washington can do to Montreal and what their experience is going to allow them to do. I just don't see. I think that this is going to be one of those, yes, this is daddy going up against the young boy. And this is when the young boy realizes that dad is still bigger than him. He could still
I don't know if I'd go that far with it, but
I'm going with it. I'm going to say that they are going to sweep the Montreal Canadiens in round 1.
That bad, huh? Okay.
That is where I'm going with it. I got to take a stance somewhere. I know you're not calling for a sweep, so.
Nope, not calling for a sweep. I will say the one big X factor in this series for me is the fact that, one, Montreal has been playing playoff hockey, it seems like, for the last month and a half, 2 months, right?
Yeah.
They're already in playoff mode. I think they've got, between Brendan Gallagher, Josh Anderson, Arbor Jacki, to me, Matheson's going to be the difference maker on the back end, I think, for Montreal, because he's going to get all the minutes and the tough assignments. But also the fact that I think that since Ovechkin finally broke that record, it almost feels like a little bit of a deflation with the way this team's been playing. Patra, I don't know what we're going to get out of.
They already clinched everything. They have
I know they are clinched everything, but
nothing matters now until the playoffs.
Yeah, I know. So we'll see if they can turn it back on, if they can flip that switch and get back into it. Patra, I don't know what you're going to get out of him or when he's coming back in the first round. They say he's resumed skating. Logan Thompson has resumed skating, and I'm not confident if you got to go back to Charlie Lindgren for this whole series. But Montreal's coming in, they're going to be playing loose, right? They've got nothing to lose. They're big underdogs. They're not expected to win. With nothing to lose, sometimes that can be a little dangerous. And when you got a guy like Patrick Laine, who to me is probably going to match Ovi goal for goal on the power play, right? Same spot, same shots. When it comes to 5-on-5 play, maybe Nick Suzuki right now is the hottest guy in the NHL.
Yeah, that's true.
We'll see what happens. But you know what? I'm going to go on a wild card here, because there's always one team I like to pick that's not expected to win. And a couple years ago, I did it with Boston in Florida. So this year, I'm going Montreal, and I think they're going to do it in 6.
Wow. Okay. Now, see, I don't think there's any way that Ovechkin is going to let this happen again against Montreal. It happened in the beginning of his career, and it held over his head. It was hung over his head for 10 years till he won a cup. Everyone just talked. Remember that time that Montreal smoked you? You lost a 3-1 lead? No, it's not going to happen this time. I think that, he broke that record. And I think now you're like, we could win a Stanley Cup. Like, he's going to say the record Stanley Cup is what I want. So I think Montreal is a great story. Now, a sweep is really hard to do and hard to predict. But I do think that Montreal is a great story that they get into the playoffs. And I think it's where it ends.
Okay. It was like Washington last year, right? It was just nice to get in.
Yep,
right?
Nice to get in.
I don't know. I think if they can get some average goaltending, I think Montreal's going to push us a little bit. We'll see. Again, they're playing loose. They're coming in hot. They've been the best team since 4 nations.
I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it. Like, this is going to be a great series, and it'll be a lot of fun. Especially, I think this is Ovechkin sounds like he's going to retire after next year.
Or go back to the KHL.
There's no guarantee that this team is as good next year. Like, there just isn't. You just never know who you lose and who takes steps back, and they are primed to do something. They've got home ice advantage through the whole playoffs, unless they play the Winnipeg Jets. So I just think this is the year, right? Like, there's going to be no guarantees next year that you even make the playoffs. So I got to think that there's somebody going, this might be Ovi's last shot at a cup. We got to do what we can do to give it to him. Make this the greatest year ever, breaking that record and winning the cup. So I think there's just a lot for them to play for. I think it's going to be a Washington heavy series.
Don't get me wrong. I'm still picking Montreal, but the playoffs are just more exciting with Ovi in it. So if he goes deep, makes a run, that would be fun.
Oh, yeah. Yep, definitely. All right. There are the first 4 series that we are mostly know that are going to happen. My assumption is the Leafs are going to play the Senators. We've got the Florida teams playing each other first round. And then the other ones are still so much up in the air. But right now, I think the odds have it as Winnipeg playing St. Louis and Vegas playing Minnesota. So we'll find out what happens. And once we know, we'll do another show later in the week and preview the rest of the playoffs before the playoffs start on Saturday, right?
Saturday, yeah.
I cannot wait. I'm giddy.
What an Easter weekend, right?
I mean, right? Yep. Cannot wait. Yep. All right. You can find us on X, at OT Hockey Talk, as well on TikTok. Those are the 2 spots where we're rolling right now. So find us on there. Subscribe to the show. Justin, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Say la vie to Logan Couture. Looks like he's not coming back. I loved him in San Jose, so it's a sad day.
Yeah, has to retire because of health reasons. You never like to see when someone has to retire because their bodies just aren't working anymore. And like, it's because of an injury, not you're old and slow, you need to retire. It's not like that. It's not like when Marc Messier was 44 years old and still playing and you were like, bro, you're on the 4th line. You're playing 8 minutes a night. You're also not good anymore. Go be a leader somewhere.
Yeah, Lidstrom said it best when he said, you leave the game before it leaves you.
I like it. Yeah. Which is exactly what a lot of the greats do. Gretzky left. Gretzky put up, 70 points? In 99, when no one was putting up 70 points, the year he retired, it was like, what are you doing? You could play for probably another 5 more years and still be incredible. But, yep, I get it. I don't get it because I'm not that good at anything. Nor will I ever be that good at anything. Kudos to them for knowing when it's time to hang him up. But yes, Logan Couture, great career. And one of those guys who the mentors that he had are like Patrick Marleau, Joe Thornton, Joe Pavelski, Hall of Famers, and guys who are, that's a legacy to pass down. Sharks legacy there for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Find us on Twitter. Subscribe to the show. We'll talk to you guys later.